Who are you and name your credentials? My name is Natalie Ellis. I'm a licensed professional counselor and a national certified counselor. I have been practicing since 2000 and I currently own a private practice called Esteem Counseling and Consulting Services. I started my private practice in 2012 in the Decatur, Georgia area. What is secondary traumatic stress? It is when an individual is impacted emotionally after hearing about the firsthand trauma of another. The symptoms often looks like post-traumatic stress disorder as evidenced by an increase in arousal and avoidance reactions, such as sad mood, irritation, anxiety, irritability, or thinking over and over about the event, as well as hypervigilance to the indirect trauma, which causes a shift in the individual's view of safety, trust, and independence in themselves and in the world around them. Have I ever experienced secondary traumatic stress? And give details. As a therapist, we sometimes experience secondary traumatic stress because of the things that we hear from our clients. Oftentimes we play it over and over in our head and begin to have some emotional attachment to it. I've had some of that happen to me at times where I would have a hard time sleeping at night because I'm kind of going over and over the things that they say. So self-care is something that's really, really important to me. Furthermore, people experience secondary traumatic stress by listening to the news. For example, the school shootings is a big thing that's happened recently, and oftentimes the news bombards us with the information, and that creates a feeling of feeling unsafe for individuals when they're hearing about the negative news over and over and over again. Have secondary traumatic stress ever impacted my daily life? Yes, at times when I'm hearing a particular traumatic event from an individual, because I'm hearing it over and over, and it often causes me to think about it before I go to sleep. So it sometimes impacts my sleep. It sometimes may impact my daily routine in terms of inability to eat and do the things that I need to do because I'm consumed by my client's experience. So again, self-care is something that I really, really stress upon and do for myself. Okay, and with the example of the school shooting, for example, I've had a few clients who's had difficult time wanting to go to school after hearing about the school shooting in fear of that this may happen to them at their school. What I want people to know about secondary traumatic stress is that it can happen to anyone. Anybody who is in a situation where they're constantly hearing repeatedly a news or negative story, and that's traumatic to some extent, they could then start to take on those experiences and could start taking on the events. They could replay it over again, and that sometimes leads to trauma and traumatic stress by hearing information about the news, the shooting, for example, or mass shootings that takes place. Sometimes just replaying that stuff in the news keeps us replaying it over and over in our minds as well. And so one of the biggest misconceptions about secondary traumatic stress is that it has to happen to someone directly for you to be impacted, and that's not so. So hearing about a news or hearing about somebody's traumatic event, just hearing about it, we create our own story, and we create our own images in our minds of that event, and that in itself could create traumatic symptoms for us as well. And so the one thing I do want individuals to understand is that it's important to be mindful of the things that we are letting into our minds and how those things are influencing our brain response and our emotional responses and our behavioral response. And so being mindful of the negative news or the traumatic things that's going on out there in the world, and how much of that we're listening to and we're hearing from day to day, and how much that is impacting us as individuals. So that is my take on secondary traumatic stress. Thank you.